People that experience a Circuit 7 activation with full-on awareness face a choice. This is the choice between serving two metaphorical spirits. Jung called them the spirit of the depths and the spirit of the times. Circuits 1 to 4 are the spirit of the times. This is the social consensus reality around you, the status quo. The spirit of the depths is the underworld, the unconscious mind where the archetypes of the goddess and the anthropos are calling for your attention. These human bodies of ours are meant to act in the world. There seems to be no doubt about that. But what motivates our actions? Is it the culture and society around us? Jung said no one alive is immune to the spirit of the times, so sure. But if we live solely based on the spirit of the times, aren't we disregarding an important aspect of our own humanity? This reminds me of something Christ said in the Gospel of Matthew. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. The goddess told early Greek philosopher Parmenides that she will do the talking, and it's up to you to carry her words once you've heard them. From the mainstream societal point of view, isn't that pretty risky? Like, can't these archetypes lead us down unpopular and uncomfortable paths? And don't they bring about madness? From the Jungian perspective, according to von Franz, our task is to become conscious of the larger presence, the self, and to give the utmost care to the unconscious, to nature, the goddess, instead of exploiting her. She says we are given the challenge to serve the innermost ultimate center, the self, which is manifested in human beings as the image of the great all-embracing anthropos and in the form of a mandala. There are those who argue that human beings have no free will. For these folks, life is totally deterministic and robotic. We are trapped by causality. I disagree. It may be true that we don't have the freedom to choose what thoughts occur to us, but we can choose which thoughts we will act on. Jung said that man is free to decide whether one's God will be the spirit or whether one will be addicted to the world. Early Christian Clement wrote that, "My mystery is for me, which makes the election safe and free from care." Von Franz summarizes the Circuit 7 choice with a warning. Anyone who tries to dedicate themselves to both the spirit of the times and the spirit of the depths becomes neurotic and unhealthy. She said one must either yield to the conventional code of morality provided by the environment, or on the other hand, wait with a listening attitude for the creative decision to come from the self, and then muster the courage to act on it in spite the danger of error. End quote. So my personal choice was to go with the spirit of the depths. I agree with Christ's reasoning in the New Testament where he said, "Don't store up treasures here on earth, where moths eat them and rust destroys them, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." Some New Age teachers say that each of us must live our lives as artists. Each interaction we have with the people, objects, and situations in our lives should be viewed as an opportunity to create. The world is our canvas. And this is actually true, but they're missing something incredibly important. The artist isn't you. The art flows through you. If you've encountered the archetype of the united self, and you've decided to live in service of that inner self, the spirit of the depths, then you'll know that you're a channel for something immense. During one of my Circuit 6 experiences, a voice repeatedly sang, "We create together. We create together." If you think you're the sole creator, if you think you're the artist, you've gone down the wrong path. Circuit 7 will never activate properly. This is a good time to revisit the subject of submission and emphasize the importance of surrender. Surrender is critical to a healthy, stable Circuit 7 activation. Surrender is a touchy subject, especially in the modern world where so many people have questionable ethics and take advantage of others so often. This is a scene from the Marvel comic movie Doctor Strange. It's an entertaining modern-day myth about an overly rational jerk who discovers that Circuit 7 exists. The Ancient One, a female teacher, explains to a very skeptical Doctor Strange that the mystic arts can only be learned through surrender. What she says is very Taoist. I'll read you the exchange. The Ancient One says, "You cannot beat a river into submission. You have to surrender to its current and use its power as your own." Doctor Strange replies, "I control it by surrendering control? That doesn't make any sense." And the Ancient One says, "Not everything does, and not everything has to. Your intellect has taken you far in life, but it will take you no further. Surrender, Stephen." The surrender wasn't to her. That wouldn't be wise. And by the way, spoiler alert, in the film, she actually proves to be a character of questionable ethics, as guru and spiritual teachers often turn out to be. But her core teaching is correct. Gandhi himself said, "When you make yourself zero, your power becomes invincible." Surrender should be to the self, the inner self, not to another person. And this is exactly what Doctor Strange learns to do. Here is Doctor Strange activating Circuit 7, tapping into the power of the mandala, an archetypal representation of the self. Through the power of the self, Strange manipulates both physical and spiritual worlds. A Course in Miracles, Christian New Thought, and some forms of Hinduism warn that people unintentionally allow for creation of unpleasant and unhelpful life situations if they have not properly activated Circuit 7. In some forms of Hinduism and Buddhism, Maya is the name for the female creative spirit of the world. Maya is sometimes referred to as something we must escape. I've concluded that it's not that we need to escape Maya, it's that we've allowed Maya to miscreate in the world due to our inability to reclaim the inheritance that the self has to offer. Many traditions have mythological representations for those who choose to serve the spirit of the depths. People who surrender fully to the self become pure vessels, totally open channels. The only motivation these people have in life is to serve the self. The famous Islamic Sufi Ibn al-Arabi says that after spiritual seekers reach the state of oneness with God, there is an unexpected turn of events. Instead of somehow becoming all-powerful and knowing, the seeker becomes the humble servant of the divine. These servants live in alignment with Christ's instructions to his apostles in the Gospel of Matthew, where he said, "Give as freely as they have received." Supposedly, when you interact with these sorts of people, you're not just interacting with someone's personal, individual personality. You're also interacting with the self in human form. Traditions around the globe recognize and honor such figures. This is an image of the Bodhisattva in Buddhism. In Judaism, there is the Tzadik. I may have pronounced that incorrectly. The founder of Hasidic Judaism said the Tzadik is in union with God. He is the connecting link between God and creation, and thus a channel of blessing and mercy. And in this state of unification with God, it is a prayer of real ecstasy. This may even be able to overcome the laws of nature. In Christianity, these people are called saints. St. Paul certainly made his choice. He said in his letter to the Galatians, "It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live in the flesh, I live by trust in Christ." In Hinduism, there is the figure of the Satguru. Hindu guru Neem Karoli Baba would repeatedly say things like, "I don't want anything. I exist only to serve others. Service to all is knowledge of the self." This is an image of Hanuman. Hanuman is a Hindu monkey deity. He represents the ultimate servant of God. Inside Hanuman's chest, right about the area of the solar plexus, the heart chakra, you'll find the god Ram and goddess Sita together. This is an archetypal representation of the sacred marriage. In Hindu mythology, Hanuman can literally move mountains, a feat that Christ famously said is possible. The important takeaway is that Hanuman used his powers in devout service to the self. Note that being in service to the self doesn't necessarily require conscious acts of charity or goodwill. It might result in charity and goodwill, but that charity and goodwill may look very differently than what your cultural ideas of what charity and goodwill are supposed to be like. And in any case, what's important is that in this state, one is surrendered to whatever comes through from the inner self. Like Ramana Maharshi once said, "The difference between you and me is that I don't mind what happens." True service to the self means living your day-to-day life as an interconnected part of the whole of existence.